Hi, I'm Adam Post, and today I'm here with
Ben Canton
and Andy P.
And this is Welcome to the Dungeon. Today we're going to cover a couple of the ins and outs of creating your own fantasy world. Ben, where do you like to start?
I like to start with a basic idea of just a town first, because you can set a whole campaign around just a specific town. If you move on from the town and start making like the plains or the other towns connecting, then you can start working on countries, in my opinion. What about you, Andy?
Well, I like to start with the bad guys. The bad guys are always the best. You start out where the dark side of the world is, and then you build backwards from there. I build backwards from there, having like the cities closest to the danger zone, so to say, or like like hideouts and places on the map where the evil is most prevalent. Is that a word?
I honestly don't know.
Whatever.
Do you mean relevant?
Maybe. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm going to look up prevalent, though. I'm pretty sure it's a word.
Okay, anyway, back on topic here. I guess they both have a different approach. For me, I like to make a world and then kind of fill things in as the players start going in that general direction.
So your idea is more your players are creating your world and helping you expand on it.
Well, I have a general idea, like in the campaign I'm running now that you're both playing in, I have like 5 primary like continents or regions, and then they each have their capital city. And as far as like minor cities, it really depends on, I'm just kind of filling them in there as the quest takes you to them locations, instead of being like, this is everything in the world.
Okay. It also helps you to basically cover yourself on the spot if need be.
Yeah. So I can kind of improvise a little bit more if I have to. And
I've tried it like that, but my groups have always been so spastic in what they want to do that if I create something on the spot, there's a good chance they might not even go to it.
Yeah, there's that problem a lot of times where you sit there and you work for hours on the one thing that you're just waiting for everybody to experience, and then you give them the option to either go upstairs or downstairs, and downstairs is where you set up all the magical items and all this great stuff that they're going to do, and they just go upstairs and they don't even pay attention to it, and to the where you either A, weren't prepared, or B, they missed out, and you got to try to bring them back to get them. But sometimes they've got the forward mentality where they just keep going forward and forward, and it's hard to battle. But like Adam said, I like how he set up. I watched him set up a lot of stuff for this new campaign that we're playing in, and he started out with a map and then started filling in like all the different places and where these people were going. And I kind of stole some stuff from him to actually work on the evil campaign. I know I shouldn't have stole stuff from him, but you guys are bothering me about wanting me to do the evil campaign again.
How do I get lumped into this? I haven't been bothering you about it.
You haven't, and it's not even really bothering me. It's just they're like, hey, when are we going to do this? I want to do this. And well, I've given them a date and a time now for us to start doing the evil campaign, but I took a step back from the rivalries and stuff I had from knowing what my player characters were going to be, and then I set up rivals with them for the bad guys, like I said I like to do. But now I've taken a step back and I actually made the map for where they're experiencing. I never had the map planned out. I just went with the rivalries and I would build around that, and now I've got half a notebook full of ideas because of watching you plan your campaign.
I have put a lot of work into it, especially that first session, but well, how do you guys feel about like hierarchies in cities? Do you tend to create them, or do you just leave things more like it's just kind of there and wing it as you go?
I usually have a basic guideline I keep for them. I usually keep the nobles in their own separate district unless the players want to go visit that district. And then I keep middle class in a separate district and lower end income in a separate district. So if someone wants to say, I want to go to middle class, then I usually prepare that in advance or as we're going along. Because it's some characters and players don't necessarily want to go to other places like that. They hit a town, they want to go to a shop. They want to go to a bar. They want to go to an inn. And then they're just probably going to move on. If you're going to stay in the town, then I would focus on who's on top, work your way down from there, and who's on the bottom.
What are your thoughts, Andy?
Well, like I said, with starting with the rivalries and things like that, I like to use the monarchies or the hierarchies as the bad guys in a lot of I know I keep going back to the evil campaign, but it's a perfect example. I have the king and his guards, and one of his guards actually has a rivalry with Ben's main character in the campaign.
Hello.
And I set it up as the king is so untouchable, but like Ben said, they work their way up from the slums district to the higher district, and then once they've made a name for themselves or whatever, then it's more appropriate to have them go after the king or someone who is under the king's guidelines or power, and it just kind of, it's there to bait them in like fishing. Like you got the worm on the end of the hook and you just kind of reeling in as you're going, and the player will just follow that, because if you set up a rivalry, they will fight that character until it's dead.
Yeah, my kind of world, like I said, I've broken it down into 5 major regions. I know, like, the one you guys are currently in is a samurai Eastern Asian country. So there's an emperor. The military's kind of samurai-esque, whereas in my mountain region or continent is more barbarians. So there is a set leader, but it's also more free-formed and freedom-based. And so, like, also with, like, war tactics, if they were to go to war, they'd be a lot more guerrilla warfare than what the samurais would be. I mean, how do you handle militaries, or does it normally not come up a whole lot?
Militaries, I have each country, or basically each country and continent have their own separate militaries. And I make sure that the country has a strong, like, balance for the military. I usually have, like, magic squad group, straight melee fighters, range. I want it, when it does come up, and it very rarely does come up, but if it would come up and they had to fight someone from the military, they're going to be fighting someone capable of fighting, not just a makeshift NPC that's just thrown there. Like, they're going to be trained, and they're going to have some fundamentals. So I like to do that, and I like to make sure that there will be, like, a captain or sergeants or people of power, and I have names written down, and I have basically the king of the countries and the hierarchies on that point that will command the military. And when I have the country itself all finished, and I'm going to put, like, guard posts, I usually estimate how many guards are going to be at a post, how many military groups are going to be at a post, and which cities will have the highest amount of military actions.
So you really go in depth with the military.
Yeah,
A lot more than I have so far, but
I believe that if a player does something wrong in a campaign, at all, like something illegal, something evil, both the country and the military will be after them. Not just like town guards, because some stuff will leave towns and be rumors, and you're going to get bounties and things of that nature. So militaries are going to be more prominent if you have actions against you, even if they're wrongly accused. So.
I mean, from your campaign, it sounds like the evil campaign's kind of just one city.
Yeah,
So you just have the one army to deal with.
I just have the one city, and the army is basically a handful of corrupt guards, kind of, stroking the king's ego and just keeping him above the little people in town. Just to, I don't have military per se, but more of like a ragtag bunch of mercenaries.
All right.
And I don't go in depth, or I didn't in that campaign, but some of the stuff that I would like to do is actually get a military force built up to where they're actually competent people behind the spears and the swords, like Ben was saying. Like I have the problem of making faceless NPCs that are just there, like the guy barely there that I made in one of my campaigns.
Well, I guess with all the military / like guards in the city, I guess how do you guys handle laws? I know my campaign, like I said, the main continent that you're in right now with the samurais and stuff. I mean, they're basically your basics, like don't kill, don't steal, the generic kind of stuff. I mean, do you tend to make that flow throughout all your cities and all your different countries? Or how do you do it? Because, I know one of my continents is more of a roguish, piratish kind of thing. So the laws are a little bit more, do what you want.
Do what you want, basically don't mess over the other people in it. Well, mine, personally, I make... Each country has similar laws to an extent. I usually do, if there's a barbarian country, murder's more lenient. You just don't murder people of high importance, and you can't get caught. Basically that. But for something of more, a more noble country, a country that's more like England, in night times, that have knights, have kings, have dukes and duchesses, then the rules are going to be more restricted on what you can and cannot do in all tiers of the hierarchy. If I have more of a country based off Asia, or just in general, just picking more of a smaller part of Japan or something like that, then I'll go with respecting elders and respecting others, and then death penalties in certain countries too, which are a very hard and touchy subject with a lot of players. So if you have a country that has a death penalty or high law against stealing, you steal something, first penalty is they take your hand or something of that sort.
Yeah.
It gets more harder and more difficult to explain that to players who just want everything to be free.
Yeah, again, in the evil campaign, I have to gear up people so they can break more laws. I basically make the guards and the rivals, I believe one of the rivals is an investigator, another one of the rivals is your blonde-haired, blue-eyed, 6-foot-tall paladin, Fabio type guy. And another one is a private investigator, and they're just the mirror opposites of my players. And then sprinkled in throughout is a police academy type guard system set up that they're basically just there as lambs to the slaughter. Because in the evil campaign, I want them to be able to break all the rules and kind of stick it in the king's face.
So, unlike me and Adam's campaigns right now, where we build up laws and we build up military, you're breaking down laws and breaking down military.
Well, I'm making the laws. You guys are the ones breaking them.
And if anybody knows about breaking laws, it's Andy.
Hey, now.
Anyway, so how about types of goods? Do you like your cities to have different types of goods,
Import, export?
Yeah, this city only really carries, for example, Eastern weapons or firearms if you have them in your campaign, or maybe they don't carry weapons at all.
Yep. I usually use larger cities as more of a universal hub for equipment and items and things of magical sorts and things of mundane sorts, more of a universal place. if you're going to my barbarian country in my basically universe, bans like all magic users because barbarians and northerners usually don't accept arcana in my universe, but they will use and overuse magical items because they don't know exactly how it works and the amount of money that goes through it. So they will pillage and take magical items and trade magical items for beads if really need be, or things that we really don't use. But I have other countries that, like littler towns that only have like food or clothing or mundane equipment, and even mundane equipment is kind of hard in some places. I like to make sure that all my countries and all my towns don't have everything, and that it's kind of harder if the player is looking for something specific.
Yeah, I think, I think if you're going to make stores and goods, I mean, there's some DMs that have the stores where you're like, oh man, I really would like to get a +1 weapon or something like that. And they'll just give them out generically, like they won't have, I mean, our buddy Dylan does a good job. He brought in a guy from a different universe, and a door just appeared and we could buy all sorts of magical items. I thought that was pretty funny. Like it came out of nowhere, and it just showed us a whole new side of Dylan's imagination. But like I don't know, for me, I like the blacksmiths are, 90% of your blacksmiths are making horseshoes, and they're making cardboard cutout swords for large armies and things like that. You can't just what do I want to say? You
can't expect masterwork quality materials out of just a mundane blacksmith.
Exactly. There's so much people that they're level 1 and they're already fishing for that golden weapon, and I think you need to make it. They need to achieve something first before. I mean, put them. Ben is a perfect example of putting us into a situation where we all have a short sword or a long sword, and we have to fight guys that have DR to non-magical weapons. And
No, not Ben.
yeah,
I know, right?
but it's just, we even call it giving it a Ben's chance. Like, it just, sometimes Ben will throw something our way and we'll monster through it, and then he rewards us, very well. But he keeps the campaign geared so well that we're not overpowered anytime soon. And as soon as we think we're overpowered, someone takes us down a peg. And I mean, I've tried to adapt that style in my DMing. I just know it's fun to let the players feel like superheroes, but sometimes you got to take their powers away and make them feel powerless.
Like, if you're a character that doesn't focus around weapons or armor or things of that nature, and you feel like items, and like when you go to a place and they don't have the items that you need, and your items that you need are like super scarce because they're magical or something, then your goal is basically figuring out a way to not truly like search out the weapon, but go to more populated places. Because that's one of the hardest things for a group that is like, you have a fighter who uses weapons and armor, you have a sorcerer that has components and spells and doesn't have to really worry about those. Who's going to find more materials? If you honestly think about it.
Yeah, the fighter.
Yeah, the fighter will find armor and weapons much easier than the wizard or sorcerer or anybody will ever find spells or get spells. So you gotta try to, not as a DM to balance everything, but your goal is to also not really make sure that no one feels neglected in how you're distributing stuff. So yeah,
Hard.
it is, especially when you start getting groups of like 6 or more, and you have to like divvy out equipment, and you're like, well, this person would do great with bracers of shield or bracers of armor. Wow, that's for a monk, but let's give it to the wizard because the wizard's kind of frontline too at this point in time because we have too many ranged people or something of that sort. You just have to remember that your group, ultimately you give an item to a group of people. It doesn't matter who you want to give it to, the group chooses. If they give you, if I give out a studded leather armor that gets like a +2 to your bonuses to your dex, a fighter's not really going to take that because they could probably wear heavier armor. But if they have no armor, then a fighter will probably take that.
That's a very good point, but we're kind of running out of time here, so I think next session we're going to focus more on creating the NPCs of your world,
Yes.
which is a big part of potentially drawing people more into the world you're actually having them play in. So this has been another episode of Welcome to the Dungeon with your host Adam and my two guest hosts.
Ben Knudsen.
And Andy P.
Peace out.